The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
I would urge you right now to go to our website, khow.com, and see the ad that is now running this morning in the New York Post. They've accepted this full-page ad declaring Barack Obama's real biological father, the late CP member Frank Marshall Davis. Please say good morning. He's become a companion to our show. We spoke off air this morning. He didn't know about the USA Today ad. His name is Joel Gilbert, and he's one of those guys that just is a very brave guy who steps forward. And he got his ad in the paper. First of all, Joel, good morning and congratulations, and thank you for coming back on in Denver.
Hi, Peter. Great to be here. It's been quite a struggle to get any United States newspaper in America to take our full-page ad for my film, Dreams for My Real Father, even though it's the #1 documentary on Amazon for the past 2 weeks. Yeah. We went to USA Today, Washington Post, and the New York Times. All three of them refused to carry an advertisement for a DVD because it was something that exposed the truth about Barack Obama. And I was shocked this morning, just as a coincidence, that we finally got a newspaper, which was the New York Post, to run our full-page ad. It'll be in there today and also Sunday, to find out that 2 of those 3 newspapers that turned us down didn't want our money, is carrying a full-page ad for an anti-Romney ad. Mm-hmm. So it just shows their bias. It's just so obvious.
Well, what's interesting to me, in the USA Today that you offered $90,000 to would not take your money nor your ad. This ad could be your ad, except it says, the headline is, and it's a full-page ad, page 5A. It's the entire page. Larry Flynt and Hustler Magazine announce a cash offer up to, in big black letters, $1 million for information about Mitt Romney's, and this is what it says, unreleased tax returns and or details of his offshore assets, bank accounts, and business partnerships. Big, bold script. What is he hiding? Can you provide documented evidence of your claims? Larry Flynt and Hustler will pay you up to $1 million if we publish your verified story. Call 1-800. I would urge everybody to call 1-800-251-2714 and ask those guys when they're going to take out one of these ads about Barack Obama and a litany of things that he's hiding.
Well, just imagine if you were a stockholder or a shareholder or an owner in some way of USA Today, New York Times, or the Washington Post, and you find out that they turned down my $90,000 and wouldn't take the money for a commercial product that's #1 on Amazon, and they're instead only taking half of the money they could have earned and accepting Larry Flynt, of all people, let's look at his moral background, of all people, and rejecting a commercial DVD that has investigative journalism that is relevant to every American.
And of course, the purpose of this ad isn't, and you document what you say. The purpose of this ad is anybody can say anything they want, and it really is just an ad that says Mitt Romney's a liar. No, I mean, how many people can really do what he's asking them to do? And the answer is, of course, maybe none. But he still gets his out. You know, I was sitting there thinking during the news, do you and I want to call the 800 number and tell them who you are and ask them if they're going to do this for, if you offered them the same amount of money, or would you do the same? I mean, I'm trying to kick this around in my head. I'd like to give them a hot foot.
Well, we talked to the advertising director at Washington Post and USA Today, and we submitted the ad, and they kicked it up the ladder. They sent it to the next department, and went all the way to the top of both of these organizations, and they both came back and told us that the ad was not for them, that they wouldn't take our money. And we said, why? And they said, well, we just think that it's not something that we should be carrying. Now, this is a DVD. It's investigative journalism. It's for sale. It's in the marketplace. Now, you compare that to what you've read to me about a blatant political opinion piece.
Absolutely.
And it just shows you how corrupt the American media is.
Well said.
And that's why talk radio, unfiltered, unbiased radio like yourself, is becoming more and more popular. And that's why your show is so popular, because people know they can get real news and real facts without it being filtered by these corrupt organizations.
Well, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but what I see is this story of who Barack Obama is a mystery. It's a riddle. It's an enigma. It's everything and anything. It's the most, as Clint Eastwood said, the guy's perpetrated the greatest fraud on the American people in history. But having said all those things, what's unbelievable, and just locally, the Denver Post that wrote 3 editorials in 3 days about what birthers are racist and liars and stuff. And I actually invited the guy as a normal person to come in the studio and back up what he wrote. They would not even return our phone calls. I mean, Joel, they don't even return phone calls.
Well,
and so they can say these things, and that's fine. I mean, it's the First Amendment. I'm cool with that. But they don't have the nuts to come in and sit down or do it by phone or invite me to their editorial boardroom, which I'm more than willing to do, and tell them why they're all full of crap.
Well, I think the thing they're most afraid of is my film, and that's why the left won't even talk about it or criticize it. And so because my film, I think, makes people realize that the story of Barack Obama is no longer a riddle. I think we figured it out,
Yes.
that his real father was Frank Marshall Davis, a Communist Party USA propagandist who indoctrinated Obama from age 9 to 18 by Obama's own admission in this radical Marxist anti-white ideology. And then Obama used the Kenyan father fairy tale, I call it, to promote his political career, that he was going to bring people together because he was the multicultural ideal. So I get it over and over from people who see the film. They say it all fits together. You nailed it. And the problem, like with the media you're mentioning, Denver Post, that the socialists have been penetrating for 30 years American universities, media, entertainment, and have supported this with this election of Obama, which was not a sudden political phenomenon. It was something that they've been preparing for many, many years, and that's why even in office or running for re-election, they will not expose or tell anything negative about their guy.
We have not spoken since the Republican or Democratic convention. Didn't you think it was interesting that the story of the Kenyan goat herd and the Kansas farm girl, that improbable story, disappeared?
Well, unfortunately, the Republican national mainstream establishment campaign and story is focused on this 33-year-old concept that Ronald Reagan used. It's called "Are You Better Off?" ? And they're basing their whole campaign on this old, tired slogan.
I agree.
And I've tried to tell them, I said, listen, Obama is a sociological phenomenon backed by a massive corrupt media. You can't trot out something so old and tired and expired and hope to make an impact. The only thing that I think can make an impact is when you go to the core of his support. The core of his support is his so-called personal appeal or likability.
The life story.
Likability. He's got an inspiring family story.
Right.
So when people see my film, they realize that Obama has a deeply, deeply disturbing family background that he hid in order to obscure this Marxist political foundation.
You know, we had D'Souza on the radio show the other day, and it was a really good interview, but I brought all these things up, and he chooses not to look at those things, and that's obviously his call. But, you know, he projects ahead, and there's a line that says, young men talk about the future because they have no past, old men talk about the past because they have no future. And what he is projecting is what it will be like if. And I bring up all the other stuff that we've worked on, some of it obviously because of your hard work and Jerry Corsi's, and get on a list of people who've worked hard. And he finds a way, and God love him, to look the other way, and that's fine. But here's a question that dawned on me, and maybe you could answer it. If your father lived in Kenya, and your mother did everything what we're told Barack Obama's mother did, how come there was never any correspondence, any letters between this young man, this boy, this child, and his daddy? They never have a letter writing thing. They never talk. And one of the things that D'Souza didn't know, and I was kind of taken back by it, is if you read his book, if you read Obama's book, he says that his mother tells her father, make sure he sees Frank. It's in the book. He said, I didn't know that. I'm thinking to myself, did you not read I'm thinking to myself, did you not read the book? Having said that, once you think, Joel, if your dad lived in Cleveland and you were living in Dallas, that most of your life you'd have a correspondence with your dad.
Yeah.
There's no letters, no correspondence.
Yeah, let me comment, is that unfortunately, Dinesh D'Souza, a very nice guy. I've met him.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he bought into the official narrative
Yes.
which was Obama's official story about the Kenyan goat herder father.
Right.
And then he tried to explain Obama's policies
Exactly.
through his own upbringing in Kenya, that is D'Souza's upbringing, through this concept of anti-colonialism. Now, anti-colonialism is only a very tiny part of Marxism. And in D'Souza's film, he claims that when Obama went to Kenya as an adult, he, 28 years old, that he became an anti-colonialist somehow. Obama showed up at age 18 at Occidental, admittedly as a committed Marxist, to study with the Marxist professors. The Kenyan was a sham marriage at the time to...
If it was a marriage.
Even if it was. It
Right.
was to hide an illicit affair between
I agree.
Obama's mother and Davis.
I agree.
And Davis was raised Davis raised Obama. The mother brought him back at age 9 from Indonesia and essentially told the grandfather, make sure he sees Frank. Imagine, she says, remember the 65-year-old communist pornographer guy that I used to take those pictures with?
Get him to him.
That's the man that really should be hanging around with my 9-year-old. Now, these were parental visits. Parental visits.
And by the way, Frank Marshall Davis is an admitted bisexual.
Bisexual pornographer.
Yeah.
He's a pretty seedy character, not only politically in that he was anti-American, a pro-Soviet propagandist, and a suspected Soviet agent.
Openly cheated on his wife.
Wasn't cheating. I think she was participating. It was a very, it was a whole swinger, very sick background and sick lifestyle. And this is the person that raised Obama and influenced him the most. And you can see it in Obama's policies in the White House. That's why it's very relevant. I show all the writings of Frank Marshall Davis in my film, and you can just see the mirror image of President Frank Marshall Davis Jr., and he's carrying out the dreams from his real father.
And I asked D'Souza, I said, don't you think it's... I asked him, I said, who took the nude pictures of Stanley Ann? I realize it's an unpopular question, but it's true. Well, I don't go into that. I said, and he rejects your Frank Marshall Davis train. And I went, no, wait a minute. But if you look at the floorboards and you look at the woodwork in the house, and I said, Gilbert went and looked, and the floorboard, they still match up, and it's his house, and that's where he lived, and that's where he took the pictures. Oh, well.
Yeah, well, D'Souza reaches some of the same conclusions I do
absolutely.
about the policy in office, but he chose to ignore the real background.
Hey, let me do this, sir. Can I get you to hold and come back? Because this is really an important morning with the ad out and then comparing and contrasting USA Today that turns you down, takes this ad out about Mitt Romney, what is he hiding?
Right.
And here's Barack Obama, who has hidden everything.
Right.
And they won't take your ad. Everyone, hang on a second. It is an interesting morning. 630 KH would all be...
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.